Alright, so in the last video I talked about the Big Bang Theory and how it applies to God and the first chapter, the first verse in Genesis, and how all of these things can coexist in the same sphere of truth. Okay, well now I hit on a little bit in the last video how the very basic account in the book of Genesis, the 7-day account of the creation, could be totally different. And now I'm going to explain how that could possibly be. We're going to talk about the time factor and how it applies to God. Okay? We as humans, we have a certain factor of time. Well, in the Bible, it says one day to 1,000 years, and 1,000 years to 1 day applied to the Lord or to God. So what if it's 1,000,000 years to 1 day and 1 day to 1,000,000 years? I think the whole point in this verse is just to get us to see that our time is not God's. And in fact, if we believe in a God who is truly omnipotent and truly all-knowing, then we also believe in a God that is outside of time completely. Now, Albert Einstein, in the theory of relativity, he spoke early on about the ability to bend time. There's you can speed up with light and slow it down. If you were going the speed of light, that is the key to bending time. Well, so we had a very, very intelligent person say that time travel or bending time, there's some some possible reality there. Well, so we know that God is omnipotent and all-knowing, and He knows all things. Well, that would even pertain to the things of the future. So God has to be outside of time, therefore the time factor does not apply to Him. So really what we see on the 7 days in the creation is the 7 days in which God actually worked. Okay? So God could, if time doesn't apply to God, and past, present, and future are all the same to Him, He could seriously do the work of creating the dinosaurs, millions of years ago, and then he could step forward on the next day, and he could do the work to create all these other processes, even though there's maybe millions of years in between the days that He actually does the work. It's kind of like a quilted pattern, okay? Like, think about quilting a pattern. Now on the top, all you see is a perfectly woven image, okay? But on the bottom, you see seemingly endless lines of yarn or string that go from one pattern, one thing to another, and poke out just on the surface, just at the right point to contribute to that pattern. Well, that's exactly what God can do if you eliminate the time factor. He did 7 days. He could have done 7 days worth of work, but He could have put that work in different areas of time. So therefore, we have the dinosaurs that had to have come about millions of years ago in order to bring us things like, fuel, fossil fuels, the Industrial Revolution, all technology in general that we have. So those had to exist that long ago, or they wouldn't have decomposed, they wouldn't have gone through the processes in order for us to have the fossil fuels and the things that we have now to start our industrial revolution and things like that really brought about the technology, well, that allows me to sit here and do this right now. If it wasn't for fossil fuels, this process right here probably wouldn't work. Okay, but since that happened, it is brought about so many more technological advances. Okay, so that had to be created. Dinosaurs and all other organisms had to be created in that time period. So God sets up these naturally occurring processes and allows them to do the work for Him through time. And what others call natural selection, I call God opening a window of time and making a little tweak here and a little tweak there. Okay? Well, you know, all the atheists out there, you know, they're probably not going to like this. They're probably going to think that it's funny or hilarious. But here's the deal. This isn't for the people who don't want to believe in God. This is for the people who want to believe and may or may not know how to interpret the first book of Genesis and the 7-day creation. Okay, but this allows a way, if you take away the factor of time, which we know that God has to be outside of time. If he's not outside of time, he's not all-knowing and omnipotent, and the God in which the Bible declares is non-existent without that ability to be totally omnipotent and outside of time. So that allows God to be able to do the work on certain days while still allowing millions of years of time or thousands of years of time in between those specific events. So Genesis is actually very accurate, but we got to remember why it was given to people in those times. And I actually go into this process in very, very, very great detail in my book, and I actually cross-reference these things with many scriptural references and with the scientific theories themselves, and with some of the things that Einstein said were possible as far as time travel. So there's a lot of possibility there. If we take away the time factor, it makes everything possible. And if you believe in the Bible, there's no problem with that, because you already believe in a God that's truly omnipotent and all-knowing, and therefore there can be no time factor. So I hope that you'll look forward to my other videos where I'm going to talk about the breakdown of evolution and some other things like that. And if you're really giddy, go ahead and go out and buy my book, www.probingreligion.com. Thanks.